And now Bill Snyder leads out the North Division champions of the Big 12 Conference, the Kansas State Wildcats. Kansas State began the season with 6 consecutive wins, then lost for the first time in a battle of unbeatens against Oklahoma. A&M handed K-State its second loss before the Wildcats rallied to upend Nebraska. Kansas State closed the year with a heartbreaking rematch in the Big 12 championship game against the top-ranked Sooners. The bands are ready. The sellout crowd is ready. The teams are ready. We hope you're ready. The opening kickoff, the Volunteers and the Wildcats coming up next.
All right, here we go. KSO Classic, another edition, rocking and rolling on a Friday ahead of the 4th of July. And this game, complete opposite weather-wise. Some would say polar opposite, Drew.
Yes.
But fireworks in terms of K-State making plays, scoring points, and really this is iconic Bill Snyder offense from really most of Snyder 1.0, at least once the program got to like 3 years into him being here. This is what it turned into. So it's a fun watch and a lot of other things to dissect from the 2001 Cotton Bowl between K-State and Tennessee that took place in Dallas. They show the weather graphic beforehand, and they show it's below freezing outside. The ice and snowstorm had just hit Dallas the day prior, and not normally what you would expect out of Texas. But, it happens enough down there, and probably one of the reasons why it's not the worst thing in the world that the Cotton Bowl's played inside now. But I wish that it was still played at the actual Cotton Bowl. I think if you have...
Agreed.
Yeah, if you have a bowl game named after a stadium, the game should have to be played there. Now, I'm not endorsing the Orange Bowl to go play in the rubble of the original Orange Bowl. That's fine, whatever. But the Cotton Bowl is still standing, and they're still doing renovations to it every year so they can keep hosting Texas and Oklahoma. So why are we, I get it. You got to squeeze people in. It's a playoff game now and everything, but it does lose some of the feel that it once had being played at the actual Cotton Bowl. But there's a lot to kind of dive into from this one, and we'll get to it throughout the show, as we always do. This is from the 2000 season. I feel like I always have to kind of preface that when it comes to bowl games that take place in the new year, because some people don't fully understand or it doesn't trigger with them. I've always been one to call it by the proper year. So the year that it happened in, that's why I'm going to call it, not the season that it was attached to. So that's what we have on our hands today, January 1st, 2001. And we actually saw during the game when they showed some like highlights from other games and others going on, what we've kind of lost in college football, which is these New Year's Day games that were traditional that were going on. Because now all of a sudden, we can only play the playoff games on these days, or you'll have one other one. A bunch of these games used to claim that day, and it felt, I don't know, it like more of a day where you could just sit back and click around and watch all of them. Now with the playoff, it's like we're starting one game at a time. You don't have anything simultaneously going on, and most of the playoff games, as we know, end up being clunkers anyway. So what's really the point of all of this? But K-State, number 11 team in the country. Tennessee, number 21. K-State entered the game 10-3. And they kind of recapped the season there for K-State. 2 of those losses came to Oklahoma. And then Tennessee was 7-4, or 8-3 entering this game. So both of these teams, a couple of losses coming in, but had strong seasons. And certainly, just a couple of years prior, both of these teams were top 5 and contenders for the national championship. So this was a really marquee matchup that K-State found themselves in with Tennessee at the Cotton Bowl. Because this isn't going to give anything away for the trivia question, since sometimes this does matter. In the Big 12 this year, K-State, Nebraska, they tied atop the North 6-2. Iowa State was the only other team above 500 in the North. Nebraska, K-State, and Iowa State combined to go 30-8 that season, Meanwhile, Colorado, KU, and Missouri all won 3 or 4 games that year and lost 7 or 8. So they weren't very productive. And then the South had a few more bowl eligible teams. They had OU go unbeaten. So the lone season that Bob Stoops was able to go out and get his national championship. And then Texas went 9-3. A&M and Tech went 7-5 and 7-6. Also kind of weird because this is the time where they're experimenting with other games, so the records don't match up perfectly, and teams are playing extra games depending on how everything worked out. This was the year that K-State opened up OG Week 0 against Iowa in Arrowhead, and because it was like the Eddie Robinson Classic, they got to play an extra game because of it, as opposed to just saying, hey, you got to take that off, whatever. But K-State dominated that game. That's the one that people always talk about, how incredibly hot it was. But then people also, I think, say that the Cal game was really hot, and there are a handful of others that people bring up. So the hottest game that K-State's ever played in is the one that you've been to, people. I'll just tell you that. This was not the coldest game K-State's ever played in, but it probably felt like it to some. With this, Drew, rate the uniform matchup in this game between K-State and Tennessee.
I gave this as like a pretty lower rating to some, but still pretty solid. Like I gave it a 7.8. Like I don't mind the Tennessee uniforms, and K-State looks pretty solid in this one too, but it's not quite like Texas and K-State because Tennessee essentially does the same thing with the all whites, but it's not quite the same. And K-State looks really good too. So 7.8 could have been better, could have been worse, because Tennessee does have some worse looks than what they have now.
I went 7.1. I actually like the color orange. Some people hate it. I don't mind it. I don't like this shade of orange for Tennessee.
That's fair.
It's a little bit more creamsicle. Adidas really hasn't found themselves in the uniform game until recently, and even then, like the actual jerseys they're making, I'm not the biggest fan of. But I will say, like, two of the more iconic helmets in college football in the last 40 years, I would say, the white Power T and then the silver Power Cat for K-State and Tennessee. So I gave it a respectful score in the 7s because of the nature of everything, but in terms of how I actually like it, I don't have a problem with K-State's uniforms, but it's Tennessee that drags us down a little bit.
I think that if the uniform matchup was flipped, it would have gotten a higher rating.
Oh, yeah, that's a good consideration there. I do think, though, it doesn't look as good on TV, or at least in the TV copy that we can still watch. If you look back in some pictures, I actually think it does more justice for the uniform matchup. I can just bring it up right now. This is what the thumbnail is going to look like for the episode, and it's using a picture from Jonathan Beasley in the game. Like something about that image, I think just looks good. That feels very college football, and you're starting to kind of feel the turn into what would be now the modern era of everything. So. We'll get into that and other things from throughout the game that we watched. But before we start watching any plays, what were some of the general things that stood out to you or that you made note of watching this game? Because this is one that, for you and I, we were 2 years old when it took place. And I was there. I don't remember anything about being there. I know for a long time, one of the restaurants that we ate at down there, my dad had a cup from that he saved for a long time, and we didn't drink out of it. That's where he put all of his loose change, and it would sit up in the cabinet in his bathroom. And the only time that I ever saw it come down was when he would give us haircuts when we were growing up, and he would use it to weigh down the old like bed sheet that he would spread out on the counter and the floor to collect the hair. That's the only thing that I remember. I think it was like a red cup, and it had like a bowl or something on it. I probably could ask him. He probably still has the cup somewhere with a bunch of change in it. But that's really the only thing that I remember what the ticket looked like. That hung around our house for a long time. Inside, like the lanyard that had a little plastic sleeve for it and everything. So that stuff stands out, but I have zero recollection of actually being there.
Yeah, I was in Dallas for this, but it was deemed too cold, so I did not go when I was 2 years old. But watching this was fun because it's K-State versus Tennessee. Like that, Tennessee's not up there with like the blue bloods of college football, but at this point in time that they were, and they were really kind of getting that blue blood treatment from the broadcast crew. So it was kind of fun to see that. Uh, a very nostalgic broadcast crew and broadcast. Like this era of Fox was really, really good. And I have this as like a kind of what I deemed a notable moment from the broadcast, but it's not a total moment. But having the game be the main focus and there not being anything on the bottom about scores from across the country, my hot take is that in 2026, with how smartphones and how the internet has changed the game, you probably don't need the ticker at the bottom anymore. Like everybody is getting that from their phones or from somebody else, or in this day and age now, they probably have another screen or they have the quad box that YouTube TV has that they're probably seeing the other game, or if there's something else that's interesting happening, you can just do a little game break, which they always do with the highlights. So having the game be the sole focus and the ticker only come across like I think I counted it was only like 3 times throughout the entire game. I think was very special and really made the game feel like the main focus.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about this with the NFL, like the NFL used to be this way, and so when it would pop up, you kind of like, oh, you pay attention a little bit more. I like that. I think people kind of romanticize it occasionally, but I think it's people genuinely yearn for stuff like this where it's a little bit more simplistic and you live in the moment a little bit more with some of this stuff. And I think that, less while you're watching a specific game is good. So that I agree with you on that. A couple of other things that I'll show here. Here's a look at what the ticket looked like for the game. Please, nobody go steal our seat, since you can see it right there. So there's
It's funny that you show that picture because I think that my parents also have their tickets still somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, come on, Cotton Bowl 2001. This would have been prime. We got to keep that ticket. I had my mom yesterday. I texted her and I said, "Hey, we're talking about the Cotton Bowl on the show tomorrow. I know that there's a bunch of pictures places." So she went and dug out a scrapbook and found. So there is. This is apparently, I think, at the pep rally. It says my grandpa Steve holding me, and then my dad and my mom there, and then there is me and my dad at the game, which a very 2000 early 2000s cold wardrobe situation going on there.
What a coat that your dad is rocking.
I'm pretty sure it might be retired now, but for a long time, that was his go-to when it snowed and he had to go shovel outside. He'd put 1,000 layers on it, and then that would top it off. So, yeah, that is
you look a little colder than he does.
Yeah, I mean, just a little bit. Your parents said it's too cold for this guy. So
exactly.
I think that proves the point that you're going for right there. And I've got one other picture for you. I wasn't going to show it. I was going to try to protect my image a little bit. But since you start talking about that, and I have to, be honest about the situation. I did fall asleep at some point. So that is me asleep outside during the Cotton Bowl when it's freezing cold out. So
acceptable for the time period.
Maybe I've frozen, but yeah, I'm passed out there. So, anyways, those are the Voth family memories from that game. All right, let's get into it. Let's start watching. And really, like so many of these games that we watch, you get a little bit of a slower start. So there's nothing early in the game. you can immediately see guys slipping on the field because there's still snow hanging around. And I think it's kind of that weird stage that it gets to with snow where it starts to almost like kind of melt, but then like it's freezing to the grass. And so it's like a thick, clumpy type deal. I think that's giving them problems. Tennessee goes out on the field. And I told you yesterday, very first thing that I noticed was they're like, oh, Casey Clausen, the quarterback. And I was like, could this be Jimmy's boy? And it was Jimmy's boy, Jimmy Clausen's older brother. So future first-round draft pick of the Carolina Panthers, Notre Dame quarterback Jimmy Clausen. His brother Casey started for Tennessee in this game. And K-State gets the ball immediately. They haven't done anything with it to score, but this was the first drive, and I said, I respect Bill's video game offense so much because he essentially was playing NCAA football, just not on the PlayStation. He was playing it in real life. He said, I want a quarterback that can move, and then I'm just going to chuck the ball if the quarterback is not running. And that's how this game started. There was a lot of, hey, could Jonathan Beasley run? Could he just fling it 50 yards down the field and let's see what happens? And I think this is the thing that gets lost for some people is that because of the build and the climb that Bill Snyder had to do to get K-State into the position it was in, I think people just kind of automatically assume that 2.0 is how it always was. But you and I have talked about it. Other people have discussed it. You look like K-State eventually was getting the athletes to just kind of go out there and do whatever they want. They made plenty of mistakes. They were just so good that they could overcome it. They could also play offense like maniacs out there. And that's kind of what the general philosophy ended up being. But there were some early moments where K-State probably could have moved the ball on the first drive and scored. Not necessarily on the same page. You could maybe blame the ball, the weather, a number of things. Tennessee gets it back, does nothing with it, and all of a sudden you think that K-State is finally going to be in position to make some moves. The only problem is a pesky penalty, but I imagine a lot of people remember this and thought, hey, this is an electric start to the game.
I want their special teams to be special. Field position is going to be dictated by who makes the big play and avoids the big mistake.
Well, they're not even going to kick it to Lockett today. Phil Fulmer told us that yesterday. Lockett, the leading punt returner in the nation, although he's going to get a chance here.
Yep, he missed a directional kick.
At the 32, and now Lockett breaks the tackle. One flag is down on the play as Lockett takes it to the end zone.
Wow.
His fourth punt return for a touchdown this year, but again, a penalty flag is down. Back at the 35-yard line.
Critical mistake by punter David Leverton for Tennessee. He lined up to kick that thing to the left and out of bounds. It went off the right side of his foot, right down.
You're also talking about the athletes. Look at who all was playing special teams back then.
But
like
DeMarcus
Newman and a
Fagan
young Josh Bull.
Blocking in the back, I believe, and that's what's going to call this thing back.
You know, in college football, not to interrupt, they don't tell you what player is guilty of the infraction.
Well, I think we're going to see it, though.
Yeah, the thing mentioned that
on the return, illegal block in the back. On the receiver.
All right, so a lame start to the game for K-State because Aaron Lockett did take a punt back, block in the back, and it's pretty blatant. They had to call it, but you know, one of those you go, geez. So K-State immediately points taken off the board, but they get the ball, and you start to kind of get an understanding of really what the entire first half ends up being, because this is the play that kind of jump starts them.
Times he'll create a vertical seam right here.
Natural gap, yeah.
In the option here comes a reverse. Quincy with a lot of running room and a couple of men to beat inside the 30 and wrapped up down at the 28-yard line by Andre Lott. Surprise, surprise. Morgan only 3 rushes the entire year.
See, in my mind, this is the confidence that Kansas State has working on this track because they've been there and done that. They're a lot more open with their offense. They're a lot more creative. That's a high-risk play on a field like this in cold weather. They're unloading all the bullets out of the gun, though, and I think Tennessee's being a little bit more conservative because of the track and the temperatures.
I'm not sure we can say that anymore, Dave Lapham, but yes, point taken. It stands out. So Quincy Morgan gets the ball moving for K-State. That's really the first big play of this game. Jonathan Beasley follows it up with another really nice run. And now K-State is kind of getting into position to make some things happen. And Jonathan Beasley, quarterback that can move, really moves on this play.
Point with those long cleats is the ball. Can they keep that ball from getting slick?
Loss of 4, 2nd and goal for Kansas State, and Beasley under heavy fire, but finds room to the end zone. Touchdown, Kansas State.
That's his 18th on the ground, counting the regular season action. Boy.
Think
Kansas
about
State and Tennessee, they bring some of the best fans in all of college football.
They do it. When you see Beasley here, think about Donovan McNabb in the NFL, Dante Culpepper, Cade McNown. It's the new prototype quarterback that can throw on the run and run for a touchdown.
And that was a called play. That was a quarterback draw.
And just clearing the crossbar is Ream. So Jonathan Beasley in his final college game, the Glendale, Arizona native, to the end zone, our first score.
3-man booths don't ever really work. There's one thing that I want to show everybody here, just for posterity and to point something out. This flag right here that this guy in the K-State cowboy hat is waving, absolutely a flag that my family had at one point. So much so that there was a big hole in the wall in the living room of the house I lived in college for 3 years. And so when we were moving stuff in, my mom knew that hole was there. And I don't know where the flag is now, but she brought that flag, and that's what hung in the living room of my house in college to cover up the hole, was a flag that looked just like that one. So that is I think I'm seeing it there, and I know that my parents had it. I'm guessing a lot of K-Staters out there possess that specific flag. It's probably still flying at the Galloway family tailgate every year.
It actually is not. We got the new flag has been bought. That Jonathan Beasley play, though, I think highlights the creativity that we saw in Bill 1.0 that we didn't quite get in 2.0. Like, K-State was in the I formation and called a quarterback draw. Like,
yeah,
you didn't see that at 2.0.
We've noted some oddities like that throughout really this whole stretch of games that we watched, because we watched games from the 2000, 2002, and 2003 seasons, and we've seen some bizarre things. I mean, it was instantly when we started this series, 03 Nebraska, we saw El Roberson do some really wild things back there for K-State out of some funky formations that you normally wouldn't expect. So K-State goes up 7-0. Now it feels like, all right, they're settled in. And I always talk about it in these games, you go into them and you're waiting and waiting for something to kind of calm you down. Jonathan Beasley getting that first score would be the thing that calms you down. The next play we're going to show you is going to be one of those plays that makes you go, oh, I'm not even going to have to sweat this game.
It wasn't much.
3 receivers at the top of your screen on a first down for the Volunteers at the 28-yard line. Great protection. And throwing into coverage, it's intercepted by Jeremitrius Butler. Miscommunication, it appeared there, between the quarterback and wide receiver, and Clausen throws it right into the arms of Butler.
And Tommy, a great defensive adjustment by K-State coordinator Phil Bennett, because what he does is he rolls the safety over the top, and that lets Butler break underneath and come up with the interception.
His 7th of the season, 7 picks for Butler.
And Clausen, his 7th thrown. K-State with the ball when we return.
So Tennessee forced to give it up there. They end up stalling out a little bit, and K-State now takes it.
That throw is up there with worst that we've seen in KSO Classic history.
Yeah, that almost is a throw that only can exist, at least at this level, in this era of football. I don't know that we see many power conference quarterbacks on good teams make throws like that anymore. Josh Scobie ends up having a good run in a few plays after that to pick up a third down. It ends up not meaning much. Tennessee is able to go score, make it 7-7. And an early trend in this game that you would have noticed is that the kickers are having a heck of a time trying to keep the ball in bounds on kickoffs. We have 2 illegal procedure penalties already for kickoffs out of bounds. So that's fantastic. But I mentioned earlier, Quincy Morgan, the reverse was kind of the thing that opened things up for K-State. And he eventually has an even bigger play that keeps things moving in a good direction for K-State. So we'll show you that video now of Quincy Morgan.
A little bit, you know?
I know you like it, but I want you to let go of mine.
Big Michael Munoz.
Classic football guy joke about holding hands there.
Beasley looking to answer. Against Morgan. Touchdown, Kansas State.
Ooh, pitch and catch there.
There's a flag again.
57 yards. Beasley hooking up with Quincy Morgan, and that is his 15th touchdown reception of the year.
There is a penalty flag, but it's holding on Tennessee that'll be declined. Kansas State will take the play because
I would do anything, by the way, for K-State to have another receiver have 15 touchdowns in a season.
On his touchdowns, he had 23 touchdowns in 24 games coming in, averaging 38.5 yards per touchdown catch. He's not hurting his average.
It was a nice pickup for K-State. Great catch for Quincy Morgan, and kind of the lid lifter for K-State in this game.
Now Ream for the point after, and
the goalposts look pretty short in this era, but there you go. Beasley to Morgan, 56 yards, and K-State has taken the lead back over Tennessee. So defense goes out, gets a stop, and then we have a couple of plays that are pretty big that will show. And really we're going to see throughout this game, K-State would have had the opportunity, I think, to win by a bigger margin. They made some mistakes that maybe they were fortunate didn't ultimately penalize them. That'll be coming up here on the next drive. But it starts with a familiar name to some out there, and then Quincy Morgan once again picks K-State up.
3rd and 10, and the Volunteer faithful looking for a stop. Fake handoff to Cartwright. Beasley guns it across the middle. What a catch made by Brandon Clark. He caught 4 passes the entire year. He looked like Fred Bolitnikoff turning around to make that catch.
Boy, this makes your quarterback pretty doggone happy. You're going to see him right here. He's going to break in this in pattern right to the center of the field. Beasley throws it behind him. Beautiful effort.
He lined up basically as a tight end by position. He's a 6'3", 220-pound wide receiver. So, I mean, he is a type of tight end size guy, undersized tight end.
Hey, a guy does that, you get him the ball again.
Yep.
Beasley steps up, throws, looking for Morgan. The catch is made inside the 10. What a throw by Beasley.
And that, guys, is Kansas State at its best. Beasley averages almost 18 yards per completion. Kansas State gets the ball down the football field. They don't dink and dunk.
Hey, this is good coverage by Willie Miles from Tennessee. This is just a perfectly thrown pass. Look at this.
Right over the shoulder.
I mean, that's a big-time throw.
This is where we really start to get good Tom Brenneman action here. He's just, there's a lot of energy behind it. You're picking up on some of the things that made his Fiesta Bowl call between Oklahoma and Boise State so good, as you get a great look at some old Fox graphics there, which is something that we'll talk about from this game, because that's certainly an element of it. All right, so K-State, the play after that doesn't do much for them, but we're going to get a little bit more drama, and then Jonathan Beasley and Quincy Morgan once again.
Haynesworth, he is a power himself. Watch him right here. Watch him work.
He jumps off that tape at you that we were studying, I'll tell you.
Beasley escapes one tackle and is wrapped up at the 10-yard line by a host of Volunteers, so it'll bring up 3rd down for Kansas State. The ball came loose.
Yeah.
We couldn't tell from here, but Tennessee gets a fumble recovery. Eric Westmoreland covered up, and Beasley pleading with the official, saying that's not a fumble. I was already down.
Yeah, Kansas State, they're all pleading with him. I wonder if this one will be overruled. Beasley saying there's no way. I was long down before that ball came out. Let's see. Well, it's ripped out of there by Westmoreland. Now they call him
forward progress.
Yeah, forward progress
On the 10-yard line.
They ruled his. Wow, they ruled.
Well, I don't know about that.
Progress.
I think if you've got an instant replay rule like you do in the NFL, this thing is going to be Tennessee football.
Yeah, he's lurching forward for more yards, and Westmoreland rips it out of there.
Hainsworth is the guy that drives him from the pocket. You see right there. Watch Westmoreland come in from the right here. Watch him rip this thing out. Now, Beasley's feet are still moving. He looks like he's going forward when that ball comes out of there.
Well, that's a gift there.
That's a big-time gift there.
I think total misunderstanding of the forward progress rule by them. They see his feet still moving. I probably would have left it as a fumble, but to say because his feet are moving, he's still going forward, and he was not moving forward anymore.
He raked it out of there.
Blitz coming. They dump it off, and Morgan goes in for the Kansas State touchdown.
Wide receiver screen. He scored so many touchdowns on this. Almost half his touchdowns have been on the wide receiver screen.
You know, the thing I love about this play is the guts it takes for that wide receiver to come right into the center of the defense and run this thing.
So Quincy Morgan into the end zone again. At this point, K-State is up 21-7. Things are feeling good. Chris Johnson's going to come up with a big sack on third down, force a Tennessee punt, and K-State starts moving the ball again. So all is well. It looks like they're going to be up maybe 3 scores before the second half. Unfortunately, a real turnover finally takes place for Jonathan Beasley, and it's a pretty big one that changes at least the competitive nature of the game for the next little bit.
It's like instant offense.
He's the attitude guy. He's a shot put with legs, you know, 5'8", 242 pounds, and he's got that low center of gravity, and he has no embarrassment about thumping you.
How about Beasley today? Over 200 yards total, and we haven't hit the halftime.
Screen, and it's intercepted off the batted ball. And racing down the sideline, Jabari Greer. No one's going to catch this guy. No penalty flags. Touchdown, Tennessee.
So not ideal there for K-State, and that's a backbreaker.
A little too greedy. Ran that play, I think, 2 or 3 plays before, and that was already the 4th time they were running a middle screen. Maybe a little too greedy that you thought it was going to work again.
Yeah. K-State already 1 pick in the game. Tennessee, after getting the ball back, K-State's going to be able to take it back for a second time with an interception.
Philosophy of Kansas State that I saw a couple of times during the season: spread you out with the option to stretch you, then power game inside to bring you up close to the line of scrimmage, and throw it over your head.
Three receivers set for the Volunteers on third down, and intercepted at midfield. And making the play is DeMarcus Fagan, the junior out of Irving, Texas. How about the homecoming for Fagan?
How about the 2 Hawaiian members of this K-State defensive line with instant pressure on quarterback Casey Clausen?
Tag team.
Watch Fadafehi and Tangiai. Here they are, the 2 of them, and look how quickly they're on top of Clausen.
Careful with the telestrator there.
As well. Beautiful pressure.
Nice little stunt.
Do not connect the lines. Don't do it. Do not do it. That's dangerous right there.
Look how quickly they're on top of Clausen, and Beisel's there as well. Beautiful pressure.
Nice little stunt.
Modern college football, that's roughing the passer.
Yes. I thought the exact same thing.
In front of you like this, you rush the throw.
He threw that in self-defense, it looked like.
So K-State able to get the ball back there, and another turnover ruins their chances of doing anything before the half because Aaron Lockett ends up fumbling, so they can't come away with any more points. And as we love, we like Bill Snyder interviews. We also are big Brian Baldinger guys here, and we get both of them in the next 45 seconds.
Go downstairs and welcome in once again Brian Baldinger.
Thanks, Tom. Here with head coach Bill Snyder. Bill, highest scoring offense in the country this year, off to a good start in the first half.
Well, to a certain degree, yes. We've made some big plays, and Jonathan threw a couple of nice balls. Quincy's made a couple of nice catches, but the turnover hurt us desperately. 2 turnovers. You know, we had an opportunity to score on both occasions, turned the ball over. One of them was a 14-point turnaround. That's going to hurt you any day.
Coach, you held Tennessee to no big plays here on defense. Nice job by the defense. Any changes here coming out of the second half?
Well, I don't think that we need to make too many changes. I think, you know, there's a couple things that we have to look at where they've gotten a couple of plays on us, but by and large, I think we're playing fairly well and we're playing secure on defense at this point.
Thanks a lot, Coach. Good luck. Tom, back to you.
That era of Snyder, I wish that we got to see
Fashion
that.
icon.
And like legitimately answering the question.
Yeah, not being crotchety about like I expected when they went. I was like, oh, this is going to be good. Like he's just going to rip about the turnovers and the mistakes that they've made because they should be up 35-7 right now or something. And instead, like very well thought out, like, hey, we're calling. And that's the thing. If you read the story that was done by Scott Docterman in The Athletic, last week, about, they're looking back at the 90s and all that stuff with college football. And they talk about what Bill did to get K-State to be better with, some of the psychological things in practice and really like propping his guys up and kind of gassing them up to get them to do things. It's just a far cry from what we saw at the end and really for a lot of Snyder 2.0, I would say. And so, yeah, like that right there, I think that interview, and if you watch how that first half played out, is a prime example of why K-State was so successful in Snyder 1.0 and one of the best teams in college football for basically a 10-year period.
I mean, looking back a couple weeks ago, he was more upset during the in-game interview when K-State was kicking the crap out of Texas A&M in 09 than he was in this one. And I think that they played far worse in this first half than they did against A&M in 09.
Yeah, it's just it's a totally different deal and experience there. So we get that. Also, side note on the inappropriate end of things and not kind, but I do have to point this out because I think it's legitimate when you consider the nature of college students. Really tough outcome for DeMarcus Fagans that he was not around in the NIL era because he would have probably sold the most jerseys on the team. And that is probably an unfortunate thing to say. And it is probably for offensive reasons that he would have been up there. But I think it's something that has to be taken into consideration. It's just, it's the same reason why people like Rusty Kuntz and all these other, weird names that they're not meant to be inappropriate, but they do look like they are, and people eat that up. So I lost out on a payday there. That was something that just triggered in my head. Drew's abstaining from the conversation. That's a good move. That's a pro move right there. All right, so we got to hear from Bill at halftime. Halftime pretty long. We get both of the bands that play. I was not going to clip any of that for you, so I'm not going to say the N-word here, band nerds, but you can go find the band performance on your own. I wasn't going to pull it in here. Wasn't going to do it. Not a big deal. But as with all of these, you got to give some time to the universities playing in the game. So we get a classic K-State academic commercial here. This is how K-State was trying to sell the youth of America on attending school in Manhattan, Kansas.
5 universities and Truman, Marshall, Goldwater, and Rhodes scholarships awarded since 1986. Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, Yale, Kansas State. Wow. Nice company. Contact Kansas State University for more surprising facts about the smartest college buy in America.
Love it. I love stuff like that. It's great. Give me all the old K-State commercials. And one of the things that I thought of when I watched that yesterday was how much and this is a lot of college campuses in general because they don't change that much, and that's part of the like specialness to them. But It really is fun to be able to see, that commercial was recorded 20 years before I graduated from K-State. But from that commercial to the day that I walked off campus for the last time, I recognize all those buildings and those locations, and it all looks the same. Like, no matter what era you went to K-State in, everything is easily identifiable. And that's one of the things about K-State. And outside of, nasty looking Bluemont Hall, they kept everything in the same style, and not much has changed around campus. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, the most 2000s commercial of all time.
Yeah.
Even down to like the whispering essentially to
Yes.
start.
This was a classic. I'd say this probably lasted until probably the next decade. I think around like 2010, this was probably over, but there was a lot of like that conversational whisper, like a casual, "Oh, hey, I didn't know that," to commercials. So that's good stuff to watch and point out there. All right. So third quarter begins, and K-State is able to kind of reclaim control of this game. And this is where Drew and I talked about this beforehand, but some of these KSO Classic games, there's a lot that seems like it should have happened based on the final score and some other things. And then you watch the game and you go, actually, it was just like really big plays, but there wasn't a lot that happened in the interim. This second half was honestly like that to me, but we started with a long Jonathan Beasley run.
Accounting for 3 more already in the first half of this game.
And Beasley on the carry, could go the distance with one man to beat. And he's knocked out of bounds inside the 25-yard line.
Got some good blocking from Rock Cartwright there, who was, a Mason Voth staple in Madden in the mid-2000s. It's like, oh, he went to K-State. Okay, I gotta get him on the Cowboys right now. So Yamon Figures, another K-State legend for me in Madden games, had to get him on the team.
And like that was when carrying a fullback really mattered in Madden, and he was always near the top.
Yeah.
So it's like you gotta add him, trade for him somehow.
So shout out to Rock Cartwright, and good stuff happening there. And K-State able to keep the train moving. And Josh Scobie really takes the reins in the second half.
He could go to the end zone and will. Touchdown, Kansas State. An absolutely dominant opening drive here to start the second half, all on the ground for the Wildcats.
Talk about a punch in the mouth, too. This drive really wasn't very complicated at all.
I just want to point out, look at the camera awareness by this guy. He is on it, getting people right here. Look right here. Shout out to that guy, whoever you are. Appreciate you being on the money there. All right, so K-State now has taken a 28-14 lead. Tennessee's trying to make a little bit of an effort in this game, but Jimmy's boy, his big bro, continues to give the ball to the wrong team, and now we get a look at John McGraw making a play in this game for K-State.
And really, even the size of the hand. I don't think Clausen's having real trouble gripping the football, but the bigger hand on the quarterback, the easier to throw in this weather.
Clausen has missed on his last 6 attempts. Oh, throws the interception. McGraw picks it off across midfield and all the way down to the 28-yard line. The Manhattan, Kansas native, John McGraw. He had a 71-yard return for a touchdown against Colorado earlier this season and nearly brought this one back.
Well, McGraw reads this thing perfectly. Watch Clausen. He looks through the receiver down the whole way, and McGraw uses his speed to get across the field and leap up and make a great catch.
I think this is overanalyzing. I think he's being too nice. I have no idea what Clausen saw at any point.
I had this written down to talk about after you showed the third interception.
Watch
We've
Casey
seen
Clausen,
a lot of really bad opposing quarterback games
and McGraw sees
in the 2 years that we've done this. Is this the worst one?
Boy, it's up there, I would say.
I mean, Clausen goes 7 of 25 with 3 picks.
Yeah, and I mean, they're bad interceptions too. They're not like, oh, hey, that miscommunication, something weird happened. It's just poor quarterbacking that takes over here. Yeah, I think you're probably right. This is probably the
It's
worst.
it's this one or it's Todd Reesing in 09.
I was going to bring that one up, and I was kind of joking about it, but with everything that was at stake there, and really Todd Reesing, the blood is on his hands for the streak. If you're a Kansas fan, blame him. He's the one that got this thing off to a bad go. All right, this is, believe it or not, still a lot of ball game left. This is the last highlight that I have for everybody today. There's 10 and a half minutes to go in the third quarter. It's because it turns into a bit of a snooze fest after Josh Scobie scores.
Beasley is thrown for a pair of touchdowns. He's rushed for 91 yards. The pitch to Scobie. Cuts it inside. Touchdown, Kansas State.
Rock was awesome. Took 2, didn't he? Bowling. He like a bowling ball knocking pins down. Make that spare, Rock.
All right. Well, Dave Lapham, we should have known. That guy loves just the scrappy K-Staters. He was a big David Garrett guy, but before David Garrett, he was a big Rock Cartwright guy. Talking bowling with Rock there. And Phil Fulmer just beside himself. This also looked basically identical to the first Josh Scobie touchdown that took place in the game. But K-State is done scoring in the game now. And I talked about blown opportunities. So turnovers did it in the first half. Jamie Ream is going to miss a field goal later in this game. Then he's going to get another one blocked. So K-State at the very least, very easily should have been in the 40s here. They really should have scored 50-plus points in this game.
They also really pulled the dogs off.
Oh, yeah.
After they got up 35-14, because I think that Bill and Ron Hudson knew that Tennessee wasn't going to score unless it was garbage time, which they did.
Yes, Tennessee did end up getting their garbage time touchdown.
They very much played the rest of this game to bleed the clock. And I think some of it wasn't just because of the score, but I think that Quincy Morgan getting dinged up kind of led to them trying to bleed the clock out a little bit. But they definitely were not nearly as aggressive the rest of the game.
Yeah. The score ends up being far closer than what the stats would indicate it should have been and what the eye test tells you that this game should have been. So K-State ends up with 507 total yards in the game, 297 on the ground, 210 through the air. Tennessee stands at 298 total yards. They turned the ball over 3 times in the game. As you mentioned, Casey Clausen, 7 of 25, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, under 5 yards an attempt. That is a 28% completion percentage. But Jonathan Beasley wasn't overly accurate. This is kind of the era, though. He goes 13 of 27, 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick in the game. He also had a rushing touchdown in there that we showed early on. And then Josh Scobie ends up being the top yard getter on the day. 147 yards on the ground, 28 carries, 2 touchdowns. Beasley had 17 for 98 rushing. L. Roberson ends up in there. He has 3 carries for 24 yards. And then Quincy Morgan, 7 catches, 145 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And only 3 other Cats caught a ball on the day. Aaron Lockett had 3 catches. One of those came with a fumble. Shad Meyer had a 16-yard grab. And then we showed you the Brandon Clark 14-yard catch for a first down that ultimately led to K-State being able to make some plays and find the end zone with Quincy Morgan. So that is how things worked out in this game for K-State, 35-21 win in the Cotton Bowl. And shout out to our pals at Aflac, Drew. There was an actual Aflac trivia question in this game. There it is. Which quarterback engineered the largest fourth quarter comeback in Cotton Bowl history? The answer was Joe Montana for Notre Dame. And this is where, I'm trying to think what the equivalent would be for us now, because that game was basically like 20 years ago from this one, maybe like 23. So for us right now, that'd be like us talking about really like talking about the 2000 like games in 2002, 2003, which is kind of crazy to think about. So as we always have, I have a trivia question for Drew. So in that same spirit, K-State's largest bowl game comeback was in the 2024 Rate Bowl. They were down by 17 against Rutgers, trailing 34-17. What is the second largest bowl comeback in K-State history?
This is a good question. You did say that you cooked with the trivia, and I think that you're right.
The research is what backs it up for a cooking. So actually, I don't even know that the question is the best part of this. It's the stuff that I have afterwards. But yes, I couldn't give you. I was going to do just like kind of the same thing, but then it's too easy. The most recent bowl game they played in, you would have gotten it instantly. So I wanted you to have to think a little bit, let it breathe a little.
Is the answer the O2 Holiday Bowl?
That would be correct. And also why I stuck my foot in my mouth earlier, because I was about to literally say this would be like us talking about the 2002 Holiday Bowl. And then I was like, do not say that. It wasn't even because it was in my mind about this. That was just genuinely what I was going off of. But yes, the 2002 Holiday Bowl against Arizona State, K-State trailed by 13 by a score of 20-7 before winning 34-27. That was a KSO Classic game that Drew and I looked at last year. Some notes, though, on K-State trailing in bowl games that they won. In 4 of the 12 bowl wins, K-State has never trailed at any point in those games. Those games, just in case you're curious. Well, actually, Drew, do you want to try to name the ones that they've never trailed in?
This one.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Now I got to think of some bowl games. I don't think that K-State trailed in the Pop-Tart Bowl.
That is another one of them.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
That is another one.
And is the last one the 97 Fiesta Bowl?
No. So there will be more on that. Actually, I totaled it wrong. There's actually 5 bowl game wins that K-State had never trailed in, but this is one of them. So I wasn't including that in the tally. So actually 5 of the 12 K-State has never trailed in. The ones that you don't have, the 2021 Texas Bowl against LSU.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it stacks up. And then the 1995 Holiday Bowl against Colorado State. K-State never trailed in.
That one would have been a lot tougher to think of.
Also kind of fascinating here that, and this kind of gives you a highlight of what these bowl games have been like for K-State. In other wins, so they have the 5 that they've never trailed in. That leaves 7 other bowl victories out there for K-State. We know that 2 of them were big comebacks. There was a third that was a double-digit deficit that they overcame. Do you want to try to guess which that one was?
No, because I don't think I can get this one.
Okay, well, think about my favorite K-State quarterback of the last 10 years, Drew.
Okay.
You may not be in on the bit enough. John would know instantly what I'm talking about. Alex Delton, Cactus Bowl MVP. Ever heard of him?
Yeah. I forgot that they got down early in that game.
Yeah, they trailed by 10, 17-7. And then they put the spark in.
I knew that it was probably Delton, but it was me thinking of, like, I just remember that game because it ends, I think, 35-17. I just assumed that K-State rolled most of the game because that's really what I remember.
Yeah. So that comprises then 8 of the 12 bowl victories, and the other 4 bowl wins for K-State. They have never the most they trailed by was 3 points or less. So the 93 Copper Bowl, they got down 3-0 to Wyoming. The 97 Fiesta Bowl, they got down 3-0 to Syracuse. They trailed by a field goal twice in the 99 Holiday Bowl against Washington. And then they trailed only one time by 1 point to Texas A&M in the 2016 Texas Bowl because K-State had missed the PAT earlier. So K-State was only up 13-7. A&M scored to go up 14-13, and then K-State never trailed the rest of the game. So just some bowl game history and knowledge there in terms of some of the other stuff. One other graphic that they popped up during the broadcast, the best win percentage since 1996 in Division 1A. And you can see Florida State, Nebraska, the top two, K-State third, Tennessee fourth, and Florida fifth. So that goes to why they were trying to really prop this game up, because this was, for teams that had kind of started to define the back half of the 90s, they were getting to match up for the first time. So this was a big deal there. But those are the things that I kind of had bookmarked from that to show. All right, category time, best play in the game, Drew. What is your best play?
I think that's the deep ball to Quincy Morgan to make it 14-7. I think that is actually the play that makes you settle down and think, okay, this K-State's going to roll.
I had that as the best play as well. I think that is it was momentum saving and kind of surged them forward, and the foot was on the gas from that point. Worst play, I think that there are a handful in this game, and we're, you can say it's anything that the Tennessee quarterback did, and that would be valid. I looked at it from the K-State perspective, and just because, we like special teams here, we like the Lockets here, the block in the back that prevented Aaron Lockett from having a punt return touchdown early in the game for the first score, that's disappointing. That's frustrating to me. Really, the worst play, though, is probably the Jonathan Beasley pick six.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the realistic worst play. I stuck with special teams too, but I did anytime anybody had to kick the ball.
Yeah.
Because it was rough.
Good choice.
Field goals, extra points, punts, and kickoffs were all terrible in this game.
Yeah, it's a comedy to watch.
Tom Brenneman literally gets done saying that Tennessee's not going to kick to Aaron Lockett. And what do you know? The punter hits it right to him, and Lockett takes it back for a touchdown.
He mishit it so bad from what he was trying to do that it looked like a normal punt.
Yes.
Like that, because they said that they're like, oh, they're not going to kick it to him. And then I had to watch it 3 or 4 times to actually believe that he genuinely mishit it. I was like, I think he's just stupid, or what was it? I think it's Super Bowl 41 with the Bears and the Colts. And there was the whole thing about how the Colts all week had talked about how they weren't going to kick it to Devin Hester. They weren't going to kick it to him. And then I think decided at the very end, they were like, no, screw that. We're going to kick it to him. And they do. And he takes the opening kick of the Super Bowl back for a touchdown. Now, ultimately did not cost them, but that's one of those that you think of. I thought that was what happened here, is that they were like, no. We're not going to let Aaron Lockett bully us. We're going to punt it to him, and we're going to be just fine. And unfortunately, they were just fine because of the penalty. So unfortunate there. But yeah, kicking was not. I don't even know that it was it really the wind bothering it in this game, or was kicking just really bad in this time frame? They can't all be Martin Gramatica.
Well, I mean, they talked about that. Ream just finished second in the Lou Groza Award.
I know.
I think that technology has probably gotten a little bit better, because I think that the cleats were probably not great back in this day.
Probably bad insulation, cold feet. Yeah, I could. Yeah, I'll side with you on that one. Things that age well. A couple of things here, actually. Fox is highlighting a predict the play promo in game that you can go online to do. This feels like a very, they started with like the Fox Super 6 thing a while back, and all of these had like these pick'em things. I thought that was kind of like a new invention around the time that like sports betting started to become less taboo and it was starting to be legalized in places. And they're like, okay, we can get away with doing this. I didn't realize that it was something that they were, doing all the way back then. And I can't remember what the giveaway was, if it was just cash or if they had a prize attached to it. But that was one of those that stood out to me, especially now with as prevalent as like gambling ads are in game. The NASCAR move to Fox is highlighted here. So this was the first year of Fox's NASCAR contract. They were getting ready for the Daytona 500 in about a month. That was a big deal for them. Obviously, that's still a partnership that lasts. And I know that there's in the NASCAR community a lot of consternation about Fox still having the NASCAR rights and how they're handling that process. But like for me, growing up and thinking of NASCAR, I think of it on Fox, and Mike Joy and Darrell Waltrip and all those guys. So that's one of those that obviously has aged well, and they still have the Daytona 500 in the first part of the season. And then the last thing, evergreen. You could say this always about Fox. They're running ads for new episodes of The Simpsons that Sunday. And here we are in 2026, and they are still running new episodes of The Simpsons. That is the all-time what's aged well about television is The Simpsons, the run that they are on.
Yeah, all of those were good. I have what aged well is the Fox music because it's the exact same now. The starting lineup graphics that they used were really good, and I think that that's something that could be brought back. And I thought of all the bowl games that we've done so far, the Cotton Bowl patch has aged the best. It looked really well, or it looked really good on both teams' uniforms.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I think. Oh, this is great. Embrace debate, Drew. Top 5 bowl game patches on K-State uniforms all time.
This one, Fiesta Bowl in 2012.
Yep.
I thought Fiesta Bowl in 97 was really good when we saw that too.
Yeah.
Trying to think of some others.
I think the Sugar Bowl one,
the Sugar
iconic,
Bowl
but it's
okay.
but it's really big. I actually think the Pop-Tarts Bowl one has to be on there. It's
I actually thought that the Rate Bowl one looked pretty good.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm trying to think if there's any of the others that would stand out, and the B-Dubs Bowl gets a little too big.
Yeah.
The Pinstripe Bowl wasn't very good looking on there. The Texas Bowl ones are okay. It's a football, so it makes sense to put it on a football jersey, I guess. But yeah, those are things that kind of make sense to me. And on the topic of you talking about Fox's music, that obviously is spot on. Them adding a little bit of an extra something to it to make it college football-y. They obviously have done that now with their themes. But really just Fox in general here. And this still felt like a Fox broadcast that you would see and hear today. And in these other ones that we've watched, it doesn't, ESPN, it feels totally different now from a game production and from a lot of other elements that they have. Games that we've seen, we watched a game on CBS, the 97 Fiesta Bowl, feels totally different watching a game now. And I'm talking in game and out of game, like the promos for shows on Fox. It's still the same style that Fox is doing now. So there's just something about that I really liked and respected. And so shout out to Fox for continuing it on. And, I wish they could get back to being of the quality of their broadcast crews that they had, or at least of the broadcasters during this timeline. And even I know people give them crap for the BCS era stuff that they did, and it wasn't great because they weren't doing college football on a regular basis. Their analysts were a little questionable, but the stable of play-by-play guys that they had, then they were giving college football games to then, so much better than what it is now, because we know that Gus Johnson is washed and they lost Jason Benetti. They are going to be, it's going to be brutal having games on Fox for the foreseeable future if you're a K-State fan or a Big 12 fan in general, because you're not getting Gus and Joel. So that's just something to throw out there. All right, moving on. What aged poorly that you picked up on in this game?
I put Southwestern Bell as the sponsor and just in general of this game. And then I also put playing outside for the Cotton Bowl. Just because it doesn't happen anymore. It should, but it doesn't.
Very fair. Very fair. All right. Southwestern Bell. They, owned by AT&T now. AT&T eventually claimed the sponsorship rights. And the next time K-State came back to the Cotton Bowl, it was the AT&T Cotton Bowl Classic. I didn't have anything that really spoke to me about things aging poorly from this game. I will say things that I really liked about this. The broadcast crew, I don't like 3-man booths. And the third guy that I didn't bother to learn his name, I did not like him. Tom Brenneman, talk about a guy that would have bought a DeMarcus Fagans jersey. It had to be said. It had to be said. I wasn't planning on it, but it just clicked with me. What are the chances? Maybe that's what he was trying to say on that Royals Reds broadcast was it's the Fagans capital of the world because they were so close to K-State. I don't know. But questionable what he says when he thinks he's off the air. He's so dynamite on air, like doing this, and it's an iconic voice. It's great. And Dave Lapham and Brian Baldinger, they're kind of goobers, but it's because they love college football so much, and like their passion and energy for this, it rings through. And I like having a guy that is energetic like Brian Baldinger was, that played so he knows the game, but he's also, charismatic enough and good enough of a broadcaster to do the sidelines. I like that element in this. And I think there's some other factors that play into it. So I gave it an 8.6 for the broadcast because outside of the third guy in the booth, I liked a lot of what Fox did for this.
Yeah, I gave them a B+ because that's what we're supposed to do.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, man. I was so locked in. Yes. Okay. Well, I will give them a B+ as well. Actually, you know what? If we're doing this curve, Mason Voth college grade style, this is A- for me. A-.
I like it. I gave them a B+. They were solid, but like there was nothing spectacular or really super noteworthy from the broadcast because they were so kind of dialed in on what they did.
Brenneman made one mistake in one of the highlights that we showed. Now I can't even remember what it was off the top of my head, but it was one that I thought, that's not great. That'll stick out, but it's just he is so good on these, and I will still probably once a month go back and watch his calls from the Fiesta Bowl between Boise and Oklahoma because it's so good. I know what it was. It was the one where Jonathan Beasley takes the run out around the right side and he's going down and he does the Tim Brando early call about, he's gone or he's going all the way. And it's like he's tackled 30 yards short of the end zone. And you're like, oh no, let Tim Brando make those mistakes, not Tom. Why couldn't Tim Brando have said something on a hot mic that wrecked his career, not Tom? So yeah, that's I liked a lot of what went down with the broadcast here. Okay, MVP of the game. I actually think it's probably fairly easy. I think we're both probably going Quincy Morgan.
Yeah, okay. When you said that it was easy, and then you kind of gave me a look, I was a little worried.
Sometimes you like to zag.
Yeah, I did. I went Quincy Morgan as well. I think that, like I said before, if he doesn't get hurt near the end of the first half, I think that K-State really tries to pour it on in the second half. But it was clear that he was pretty dinged up.
Yeah. And honestly, I was impressed that we still saw him later in the game and actually doing some things. I thought he was going to be done really after the first half. I'll be interested where you go for this one. Who was the underrated player from the game?
I went Mario Fetafehi. He was everywhere in this game defensively and was kind of the game wrecker. Monty Beisel kind of got locked up. Johnson made a few plays later on the defensive line, but like Fetafehi was the one that was making sure that Tennessee couldn't run well until the very end. And then was also getting to Clausen quite a bit. So I went him. John McGraw is my honorable mention because he played well besides the interception too.
Early in the game, it didn't really result in anything crazy happening, but he came close a number of times and he was impactful on defense. Terrence Newman had a really good start to this game on defense for K-State, but it never resulted in a pick or anything like that would stand out. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. Also, Cowboy. So we have to. All right, finishing up with our final categories. Notable moments from the broadcast. We talked about some of them. You can tell that Brian Baldinger is freezing his butt off, and every time they go to him, and they've just got him down there, camped out, giving updates and everything. That had to have been a miserable day for him. But was there anything else that stood out to you? They were really pushing that new sitcom that they were doing with the family, Grounded for Life. I can't imagine that show went places.
They also, I wrote
Oh,
down
wow.
that
5 seasons. How about that?
they kept blaming how bad Clausen was playing on the fact that he has A, small hands, and B, is from California. And they said that a lot. So I thought that was kind of noteworthy.
Were they wrong?
Probably not. And then I also wrote down, because we did the '03 Nebraska game, and I wrote this down at this point. I thought they didn't have this, so I was surprised that they did in 2000. That the yellow line was a thing for Fox in 2000, but ABC didn't have a yellow line in 2003.
Yeah. Well, it happens. I should point out that this would have gone in things that age well. This is like the pretty close to the original Fox box
Yeah.
for the score bug, and so Fox is the king of that, and they started this pretty constant usage throughout the game. All right. A few other things to point out here about Grounded for Life. I was kind of right. It only had 2 seasons on Fox before it got picked up by the WB. So Fox did not want it anymore. It went there. I realized that I recognized the guy, the lead actor in that. It's because he was in the show Gotham on Fox about 15 years later, playing Harvey Bullock, one of the cops in Gotham City. So shout out to the Batman fans out there. And then that's really it for that. A bunch of random guys here that you could have loved and picked up. One that wasn't playing in the game, but they were popular around this time. They have aged poorly. The Blue Man Group, they were hawking product for somebody. I was like, they always kind of creeped me out. And then my other random guys, Phil Bennett for K-State, Anthony Munoz's son. We see Jason Witten sitting on the bench, and one of the first plays of the game that we show you, Albert Haynesworth is being discussed in there. And I didn't even realize or remember anything about Albert Haynesworth's college career. I just remember him as being, a massive human in the NFL. So those were the ones that I thought of.
Yeah, I put my random player as Brandon Clark, Albert Haynesworth. Like you said, Phil Bennett is a good one. This was, I think, one of the better games of like, oh, that guy. Because you also got to see a baby Al Roberson come in and play in the game later on. It's like you got to see a lot of people that you didn't quite know where their career was going yet.
Yeah. Also, this quarterback from basically 96 to 2003 is a weird winding road for K-State because, Michael Bishop comes in 97, 98, kind of breaks things up. But like Jonathan Beasley was around in 96. Very strange how it all ended up working out. What ifs from this game? Honestly, it was an easy one. If the simple things are fixed, K-State scores probably like 50 points in this game, and it's a bloodbath. Instead, it was like fake close, and just you're not as fulfilled as you would have been. It's still fun and awesome, but it would have been really great if you're walking out of there and you're like, oh, K-State just dropped 55 on Tennessee.
That's why I went bigger picture. I said I have 2 what ifs here, and it's A, what if K-State actually gets over the hump and beats OU in the Big 12 championship game? What does a timeline look like from there? Because then they would have already done it. Bob Stoops doesn't win a national title if K-State wins that game in 2000.
Well, you don't know that. OU is the only team that they can lose the Big 12 title and still get to play for a national title. So he probably still does get to go win it.
And my second one is, where does K-State play in a bowl game if they don't lose to Texas A&M in 2000? Yeah. We need somebody who was older than we are. How in the world does this K-State team lose to a terrible Texas A&M team in 2000?
Yeah, I don't know. All right. Rate the game. I gave it an 8.2. I thought it was really good. This has a lot of elements to it. It's a bowl game. It's a top tier bowl game. There's weather involved, and people always like looking back at fun weather games, big plays, momentum. This is just a really fun time period to watch K-State football. So I gave it an 8.2.
You went much higher than I thought you would, because I only went 7.3 because it gets the same treatment to me as as the '03 Nebraska game of K-State should have won this game by 40 points.
Fair. It had some vibes to it. It was front loaded enough, and then they're up, and so I know it's kind of coast mode from that point. So I gave it a little bit of a path. All right.
In this time period, though, I probably would have given it like a 9 because they dismantled a really, really good Tennessee team.
Yeah. Okay, that'll do it for today's edition of KSO Classic. We are back next week. We're going to jump forward a handful of years, a whole decade and a half, to just pick a random obscure game. There was really no stakes involved in it, but it ends up being one of the more exciting K-State games that I've witnessed in person. And a few months later, it became really important for a lot of K-State fans because the guy playing in Manhattan became the quarterback of your NFL team. Next week, we take a look at 2016 K-State versus Texas Tech, my freshman year of college, as K-State takes down Patrick Mahomes. DJ Reed with the iconic pick 6 down the sideline of Mahomes, and a lot of fireworks from that game. That is classic Cliff Kingsbury football. So we look forward to that next week and talking to everybody then. For Drew Galloway, I'm Mason Voth. Next time we talk to you, we will be from the Star in Frisco for Big 12 Media Days on Tuesday.